Welcome to another What's Current podcast from NAPIT, and today we're talking about all things cable. So today I'm joined by Aaron Walstow from Doncaster Cables. Welcome, Aaron.
Nice to meet you. Thank you very much.
Aaron, so just as a start off then, tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey and what you do at Doncaster Cables.
Yeah, so I'm director at Doncaster Cables now, so one of two active directors on site. But my journey started, I was at university and I decided to have a year out from university and I went to Doncaster Cables.
Oh, travelling.
Yeah, so went to Doncaster Cables and then 16, nearly 17 years later I'm still there.
Wow.
So I started off in quality control and every opportunity that the business gave me I just took that with both hands. I love manufacturing, fell in love with manufacturing, but went to be quality manager assistant, quality manager, spent a length of time as technical manager, and then I became works manager looking after the factory, and then director 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow, that's one of those unusual journeys these days, isn't it? To start, be at a company that long and like, you know, almost from sweeping the floors into one of the directors of the company.
It is.
You've seen every aspect of the business, I presume, as well.
Yeah,
that way.
every aspect.
Yeah,
heavily technical focus, but been involved in sales and the website. And it is something that's quite prevalent in our business. So the factory manager started off on one of the machines in the factory. The sales manager started off as a sales admin. The warehouse manager now was a truck driver.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of long-standing employees there, and the team have been there for a long time. And that opportunity for growth and improvements there for everyone.
I love that in companies, because like you say, that's unusual these days. People tend to have a 2 or 3 year shelf life when they're somewhere else, aren't they? But that's good to hear. And looking, doing my bit of research myself on your company as a whole, British owned company, 40 years next year established. So, you know, that in itself is a real good thing to have, isn't it? A British manufacturing company.
Yes, we're massively proud of that. Next year we just had a meeting with the team on site, but we're going to celebrate our 40th birthday next year. We're going to try and make a full year of it really, and try and revisit some of the stories that we've had. I think any UK manufacturer to get to 40 years is huge anyway, but we've also done that when our industry has been declining, so the achievement for me is even more. So
True.
If you went back to 1980s, there were 27 UK cable manufacturers with multiple sites. Now there's 5 or 6.
Really?
Yeah, we're the last one left that makes the full range of general wiring products and flexible cords. And whereas 90% of stuff that was installed in 1980 was made in the UK, 85% is now imported, so there's only 15% left made in the UK. So the switch around's massive.
That's crazy. Yeah, if you think about it, like you say, it's always that cheaper import kind of stuff now seems the way to go, isn't it? You know, but as we know, cheaper isn't always best. And with that process then that you've seen from back to front in tubing there, tell us, I mean, you don't have to go into massive detail because we'll be here for about an hour and 20 minutes or maybe a day. What's that processing sort of look like, that step? Is it literally front to back, you know, from what you get in to producing that cable at the end? Is it literally you're involved in everything aspect of that cable?
Yeah, so 4 decades now. So we started off with one extrusion line. We used to buy in copper and compound.
Yeah.
We used to insulate and then sheathe it. And then we've invested as far up the supply chain as we can. So we draw all our own wires. We're buying 8mm copper rod. We draw that down into all the wire diameters. We've got a compound plant, so we make our own PVC compounds, and we can make sure they're specially developed for each cable type and add value at every stage. But just a massive range. So 10 extruders, wire drawing, compounding, bunchers, stranders, wire armourers, 300,000 square foot site. Over £20 million worth of machinery.
I've already said to you earlier, didn't I? I'm coming for a look. I need to see this process because I get fascinated by stuff like that. I remember going to Walker's Crisp in Leicester years ago and I was like, oh, I love this place. Potato goes in one end and a bag of crisp comes out the other. This is the same, but an industry I know well.
That's why I'm still there. I just fell in love with it. You get a handful, it's like the opposite of a car. So a car, you have 3,000 components and they all get plugged together.
Yeah.
With us, we've got a handful of raw materials and we can make 3,000 different products by how we change the ratios, the recipes and the processes.
Yeah.
So, proper manufacturing.
And some real technical stuff involved in doing that then, because like you just mentioned, you know, if you imagine those different cable types from data, coax, up to your bigger cables and your SWAs, that process is really technical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. There's lots of different materials. You've then got cross-linked materials like the 90-degree ones where you mix in a graft and a catalyst. and you're actually changing the structure of the compound. So they actually get mixed and melted, and they're reset as a different molecular structure.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're doing PVC, it's thermoplastic, and you're melting down the PVC, and it's then resetting as the same as it was before. But then you've got all the extrusion technicalities, so you've got tooling designs and how much pressure you're applying.
Of course, yeah.
So they're just all sorts, but yeah, it is a highly technical process.
Yeah, the geek in me can't wait to come and see this kind of stuff. Honestly, I'm an electrical geek. And you mentioned there a little bit about, you know, that technical sort of expertise that goes into it. And we all know now we can buy some weird and wacky stuff off the internet, and like we've just mentioned, you know, we get these cheap products and think, I'll go for that cable because it seems too good to be true, which it normally is. How are you making sure that you're complying with those, you know, the British standards, European norms and all the rest of it? You know, you must have to work to, you know, really good standards as a British company, because you're scrutinised, aren't you, yourselves?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of standards in the cable. Not all cables have a standard, but there's a lot of standards to comply to, and there's just been a massive change in the industry. So if you went back to 80s, 90s, all of those cables that have been installed were made in the UK, and the way cable companies would compete is, my cable's better than yours, my cable's bigger, it's got a longer lifespan, etc. And everyone was engineering the products to be better.
Yeah.
And then with the rise of the imports, it's like super importers sending 10 tenders out, and the cheapest one wins the tender. And it drives it the other way. So everyone has gone downhill, and everything's got thinner, the materials have got worse. We're getting right to the minimum of the British standard, some failing, some passing, but right on the borderline of passing and failing. And we just tried to ignore all that. So we were set up to be the best that we could be, make the highest quality products, add value at every stage that we can, and we try to think of the end user. So Twin and Earth, for example, we make a specific grade of PVC just so it's as soft as it can be, and it strips a lot easier when someone's just stripping that all day long, so it's a really soft grade.
Yeah.
Whereas armours are all about impact, abrasion resistance, and it's a different grade for that.
Yeah.
Flexes are on show, so they need to be shiny.
Yeah.
But it's all about just trying to add that value. And it does come at a cost, because the labour costs are higher over in the UK, but it's adding value, reassurance in the quality of the products, the longevity, the lifespan, and the backup you can get from the team on site as well.
Yeah, I was going to say that, you know, like you said there, that added value, that's really important for an installer, because, you know, my install days, I remember the difficulty in stripping a cheaper, perhaps Twin and Earth, and or a Flex that didn't quite do what it says, and, you know, if you've got that, it makes it easier, you know, for the installer to do that. That's you thinking, at the end user, isn't it, rather than I'm just mass producing this to get it out there in the marketplace.
Yes, sticking cores is a good one, so that's probably the most common problem in the cable industry. Just because the nature of what you're doing, you're melting a plastic onto a plastic, they want to stick. So we've got masses of control to reduce that as much as we can. Still happens occasionally because of the nature of what you're doing, but the last measure for us, it was one issue, one complaint in 8 million metres of cable manufactured.
Wow.
And that's just because we got to the nth degree in testing and checking as we're making the product.
Yeah. And a big agenda at the moment, you know, in that manufacturing process and the end user is obviously sustainability, the green agenda, carbon neutral, all the rest of it. And you know, I had a look at your website, you know, and I can see that there's lots there that you're doing for that sustainability and carbon neutral. Tell us a little bit more about some of the key highlights of what you think that looks like for you at Doncaster Cables.
Yeah, we started our journey in 2012, so before it was mainstream, probably the wrong word, before it was mainstream, if you like.
Yeah.
And we've done significant improvements, so 100% renewable electricity on site, so that's REGO certified. We're looking at a small solar system as well, but 100% renewable energy in the products. Zero waste to landfill, all done by segregation in the factory. Yeah, so 94% of the production waste we got actually is reused, not recycled, but sent for its best possible life. We segregate different waste materials. A lot of it goes into hose pipe manufacturer. And then we've got an enclosed water plant. We save 25 million litres of water a year. We are going to be scope 1 and 2 carbon neutral by the end of this year.
Oh, okay.
Then we've got scope 3 to start with.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have made leaps and bounds really in our journey. And we've got an offer of low carbon copper. So our copper supplier, we've traded with them for over 3 decades now, but we have an option where we can have copper that's mined more sustainably with electrified renewable mines, dumper trucks on overhead wires and things
Yeah.
like that. And the CO2 embodiment in that product is then less. So that's something we've just launched with some OEMs who are finding that relevant, and something that will be available in the other products soon.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. I mean, there's so much going on there. Like you're saying, if that's been done since 2012, that's before it was on everyone's radar, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've already thought, how can we have that green agenda?
Yeah. So we did all the lighting change and putting more variable speed drives in and things like that.
So when you walk into the toilet, you have to wave.
Yeah, you do, yeah, you get
sit there in a dark room.
You get a 10-second timer and then it goes dark.
Now, we met at Solar and Storage Live this year, which was an absolutely fantastic event, and really, really popular and growing each year. And it was great to talk with you and the team and meet some of your other team, and obviously Sam from Overall Renewables. But what was really exciting there is you had a launch, didn't you, of a particular type of cable. A little bit of a clue on the top if people can see that, but not the EV Ultra. Tell us a little bit more about that launch and what that looks like now.
Yeah, PV Ultra was the launch. The experience was phenomenal. The interest, the conversations, engaging with the electricians. And EV Ultra and PV Ultra I've really enjoyed doing. So we've always tried to add value, but this is like adding value on steroids. It's really aimed for the end user. Quicker, neater, easier and safer install being the main premise. But the PV Ultra one is what is a simple problem that we didn't know we had is most strings now are wired with a single DC solar cable. It's going through conduits, junction boxes, etc. And we're now removing the need for those conduits and the conduit work that's involved. We're encapsulating solar cables inside a special bedding and then a special solar tech sheathing. So you can go from inverter to string on the roof every single time, no need to really plan the route. You can clip it straight to the wall with normal
direct,
you use normal termination, normal accessories,
external cable,
fantastic, highly UV stabilised sheathing, so you've got the same anticipated lifespan of 25 years. But yeah, it's been a lot of interest.
And from that launch, which I think we talked about at the time, was selecting probably 3 or 4 or 5 wholesalers that had that like exclusively, and you had it on the stand. I take it that's just gone crazy now, hasn't it, as we approach Christmas?
Yeah, so that's opened up now. So to all when we first did the launch, we had 10 wholesalers.
10 was it? Yeah.
Yeah, and they basically had stock at that time. So if somebody wanted it straight away, we'd divert them to those 10. But we met some wholesalers at the show, and then they've taken stock profiles, so it's now readily available. You just need to speak to an electrical wholesaler, and they're the best ones to.
Yeah, to get that product. I mean, I just love the name of it. It just sounds cool. EV Ultra and PV Ultra. It's like going to a wholesaler's and say, "Can I have some PV Ultra?" That's fantastic. Now, again, we spoke a little bit earlier about me as an former electrician. I'm going into my wholesaler. I'm sort of going in there. I'm saying, right, give me some twin and earth. I've got this rewire to do, or SWA, whatever it may be. So I'll be dealing with that wholesaler for that particular product. But I think, what sort of do you feel makes you stand out rather than your competitors there from sort of selecting your kind of cable? Obviously, you've got the EV and the PV, very specific for the installs they do. But what's the difference? How do you sort of set yourselves apart with your cables from your competitors, and how do you get that message across, I suppose, as well? Yes,
really good question. Getting the message across is sometimes challenging. So we've tried to do it on social media, but the main way I'd summarise it is all of our manufacturing decisions. We control the whole process. We've got a lot of technical knowledge and experience. Every single manufacturing decision is made to make the products the best it can be and to help the electrician. And the alternative imported products, the manufacturing decisions are made to be as cheap as it possibly can, because that's how they win the business. It's a completely different mindset in how you actually make cables. The imported side will reduce materials to just the point of passing and on that borderline. And then ours are designed to be the best that it can be for the electrician. So not massively oversized, but some leeway in there and making it easier to terminate. But with that and just the physics of it, ours would have a longer lifespan. So if you just looked at copper content, that's the best way to save money on cable. You take it right down to the bare bones, it is going to run hotter. the cables will degrade faster compared to ours. So lifespan-wise on ours will be a lot better. But I like how the product handles, how easy it is to strip, terminate, work with, the quality of the reels, for example. We could reduce the quality of our reels and put thinner tin and thinner cardboard on, not have press seams, but that then gives the contractor electrician something sturdy to work with on site, and then you're not having the...
That used to drive me mad, sorry to interrupt you, that used to drive me mad when you were on a cable reel and suddenly the thing would collapse or come off, or and it would just, like you say, goes over the side. I'm getting back to my in-store days now and having memories of that, so I'm glad you've said that, because that makes all the difference, like you say, to install. And like you say, the electrician, like, you know, for me then, if I knew that back in the day, I'd be going, oh, but I want that particular brand. Even if it was a few pence more, you know, from an install point of view, you're saving that money, aren't you? Even though the product itself might be a bit more expensive.
Yeah, and that's what we're really looking to get across in that message, is we're adding this value. We need to try and get people to understand it. So the reels is just one. So all of ours, that they're made in the UK, about 30 minutes away from where we are, and they're all seam pressed. Another one would be when we make our cables, we have a conditioning period, which I'm not going to reveal the time, but we have a conditioning period where the cables will sit on a large drum, 1.2, 1.5 metres. And when something's heated up and it cools, it has the memory. So our cable has a memory of this size. People who are going for ultimate efficiency and ultimate cost savings can wind theirs straight off the extruder onto a reel.
Okay,
Save the process.
Yeah.
Well, then the memory is a centre hole like that on a reel. So if you ever pulled a reel of twin and earth out, for example, and the last 10 metres is really tight and pigtailed and coiled low, that's probably why. Whereas our memory
makes sense.
is like the big drum that comes through.
See all this thought that goes into it, no one realises, look, the thought process that goes into it, it's absolutely mad. And also, you talked earlier a little bit about the added value, which obviously you've got that support mechanism. Obviously, up front that would probably come from the wholesalers, or the installer designer would know that themselves, but you have got something on your website to help with that support. Something as basic as like just a cable calc helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've got a basic cable calculator on there. We offer a service to wholesale partners where they can ring the technical team and ask questions, so we can answer questions for electricians via the wholesaler if it's something that they need, and if we haven't got the answer, we'll try as best to find the answer. But it's just good old-fashioned British service, really.
Which is we've been missing in the world for a long time.
So it's,
you don't have to speak to a robot or put it in a bot chat. You know, you get to speak to a real human.
Pick up the phone, someone that actually cares as well.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan, and I've been impressed. I'm a bit of an electrical geek, so I'm like looking at this new products you've got and the innovation you've got, which is what I like about your company, is that you're always thinking what's next as well to help the installer. You know, so not only the traditional, what we think, twin and earth, SWAs and the flexors and all the rest of it, you know, the things like the PV, the EV Ultra, that's just going to go on and because the technology in those areas is moving that fast, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's nice to give that back. So to challenge the norms, and EV Ultra is a good example, challenging that band 1, band 2, they're supposed to be segregated, and we saw a problem in the market where there was a lot of EV chargers where they weren't segregated. And the initial idea was, how do we make sure these are segregated? And then once we started researching it, it's, well, how can we actually combine them together in a safe way that actually complies with the regs still? And that's how EV Ultra came. So we've got power and data combined, completely new innovation. It's now patented, so we've got a patent on the product.
No one else can nick it.
Yeah, got basic approval as well. So we actually went to BASIC with their technical committee. So it's a departure from the regs because it hasn't got a British standard. But that departure we're making as easy as possible because BASIC, the largest British cable lab, have actually done the testing and said, yeah, this is fit for purpose and offers at least the same degree of safety. Yeah, and I like the fact that you just mentioned there about standards, and not only the standards that you know, the product standards that you have to comply with and you go over and above, but what I'm seeing in the industry at the moment, especially with sort of maybe switchgear and especially some of the renewable stuff, is we're going down this road of like, you know,
innovation's great, but also are these manufacturers even thinking about a British standard or a British reg? So, you know, there's noise in the industry around battery storage and solar PV, but you do that at source, don't you? You think, how do we comply with British regulations and standards and the rest of it with our product? And sometimes there's a real, excuse the pun, there's always puns in the electrical, there's a disconnect, isn't there, between those two things?
Yeah, no, it's so important, that first bit, because when you're making that departure with the innovation, the onus is then on the installer.
Yeah.
So to make sure that bit is right, and that's the first bit on our R&D page, really. But because we're based in the UK and we've got connections, we can speak to people. Connection, yeah. We can speak to people. With PV Ultra, we just asked loads of questions with installers. EV Ultra we launched and then we developed it and added bits on.
Yeah.
But we wanted to get the installers involved and get
Brilliant.
their feedback, and then say, right, well, I struggle with polarity testing was one of them because they're using two blacks.
Yeah.
So then we'll make these two different colours, and then we go to the wiring regs and say, well, actually, what's the core colours for unearthed DC circuits? What is white and red, or why is everyone using black? Well, that's the norm. So it just becomes a cycle where you try and solve a problem, then you go back to the regs and say, well, how can we make this the best it can be?
Yeah. And I love that the one on the PV Ultra. Again, I'm singing its praises like I'm selling it for you, but the labelling on the side of the cable. I mean, something as simple as that negates the need for everyone then going with a sticky label and running up the cable because it's already on there, warning of the DC voltage.
Yeah,
it is really good stuff. So finally then, Aaron, if installers and people listening to this, you know, so that, well, we want to target those consumers and installers at the end of the day, where do they go to know more about your products, website, or just get on your website and have a look? There's some documentation they can get hold of.
Yeah, the website's a good one. There's a contact number on there. If anyone wants any more information, they can ring up. There's an option for the technical. They'll be able to get some information from there. They can ask electrical wholesalers, and they can get information. And something we always try and remind people of, that cable becomes a commodity item. It's the thing that interconnects everything.
Of course it is, yeah. Everyone
still has a choice over the brand that they install, and can be asked, I want to have Doncaster Cables with it, or another.
Yeah, it's an important point that is, actually.
Yeah, because people do it with other equipment, fuse boxes and things like that, consumer units, and specify a brand. And cable is just, I'll have a roll of that.
Yeah, without thinking what they're actually installing.
Yeah, but there is a choice there, and there's a spectrum of the bare minimum to the value added, higher quality, more backup. So yeah, if we can try and get that message across, it should be worthwhile for everyone.
So you heard it here first. When you go to your wholesalers, you're asking for Doncaster Cables. There are other available, but this is British made, good stuff. So thanks for listening to another What's Current podcast from NAPIT, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye for now.